Hey everybody, it's Booray from Tampa, Florida, and today we are going to talk about AI and the future of photography. The big question is, will AI kill photography? Is photography going to die? Is it going away? This thing that we all love and many of us do professionally. I do it professionally. If it's my first time on my channel, I'm a professional photographer, by the way, from Tampa, Florida. Is it going to kill it? Are we all going to be out of work? And what about the people who just do it for fun? Is it not going to be any fun anymore? Because AI is going to take over everything? Well, it's not a simple answer. I would say the answers are yes and no. Okay, so grab a cup of coffee and let's sit down and talk about this. So the first thing that made me want to make this video is I was surfing on Facebook today, and somebody commented that when they see an image now, the first thing they think is that a real image or is that AI? And then someone in the comments said, does it matter? And I thought, yeah, you better believe it matters. It matters a whole lot whether it's real or whether it's AI. Are you kidding me? But then I thought, wait a minute, just because it matters to me doesn't mean it matters to you. And will it matter to everybody else? Are we headed towards a point where no one is going to care if it's real photography or if it's AI? And in some ways we are, but in some ways we aren't. So think of it this way. If you set up a batting machine and that thing is just slugging, right, and it's just knocking balls over the fence, that's not the same as a human being who is standing there knocking balls over the fence, right? If you watch a human being knocking them out of the park, there's something impressive about that, right? There's pride in that. You like that. That's an achievement. That's something well done. But a batting machine? No, it's just a batting machine. Oh, but wait a minute. I had to build that batting machine, and that batting machine had to be set up, and that batting machine has to be calibrated just right so it'll hit that ball. It actually takes a lot of work for me to make that batting machine hit that ball over. Yes, it does. But in the end, you are programming a machine to do the work. The real work, which is hitting the baseball. And I am hitting the baseball. And those two things are different. So in that respect, yeah, absolutely. The batting machine will never replace the big league hitter. Right? That's good news. But wait. There's other places where it does. Remember graphic art? You remember back when graphic art was something you had to do on a table with rulers and little things, and you had to map it all out and draw it and put it all together? Graphic art was a big deal. And if you were a good graphic artist, you made good money because you had to work for a graphic art firm. You had to work for an advertising firm. And then computers came along. And suddenly, people could sit at home, and if they wanted to put the time in, they could learn to be a graphic artist. And they could do it right there, and they could freelance and work from home, but now they could do it all on a computer. And they didn't have to have all this stuff. I had a friend of mine, a roommate, who was an artist, right? And great artist, great. And he became a graphic artist right around the time when Apple computers really started to bloom. And he went and he learned how to do it on a computer. And suddenly, he was a computer programmer. He worked with a computer to create graphic art. And there wasn't anything that he did that I couldn't do, despite the fact that I can't draw anything, and he can. So the art side completely disappeared for him, and it all just became about, could he program this computer? Could he move things around this computer? And now, how far has it come now? Listen, when you're on social media, right, and you see a reel or any of the all the different ways that you can see stuff on social media, and you see a really cool graphic, right? And it's a graphic, and it's got charts and graphs in it. This can happen and that can happen, and it's got an overlay, and it looks really, really cool. Do you stop and go, wow, that's a really cool graphic? The person who made that is really talented. No, you don't. Because we have Canva. We have Adobe Express. All you have to do is open up your phone and bring up one of those programs, and you can make all that sort of graphic art that you need. Anybody can. It's drag and drop and fill in the box. Not to mention millions of templates for you to choose from. So graphic art in that respect has been kind of killed by the computer, right? I mean, it's not dead. It's still there. But what happens is there's a scarcity issue, right? The more scarce something is, the more value something has. And so when something is hard to create, because say you have to create it by hand, it has a whole lot more value than if it is easily mass produced. The exception being, Beanie Babies and baseball cards. I've never understood baseball cards. I've never understood why people are so excited about a card that is scarce only because they decided that it would be scarce when they could print 1 million of them if they wanted to. I've never understood. I mean, I understand that people get into collecting for the sake of collecting, but the practical side of me, I don't get that. I understand why a Fabergé egg is rare. They were made by hand by a person who's dead now. I get that. But I don't get why something that can be mass printed cheaply is valuable because it's scarce. It's such a manufactured scarcity. So anyway, scarcity is a big factor, right? So there was a time when furniture was made by hand, and then mass production came along, and now everybody can get furniture, and most people really don't think about their furniture that much. They pick what they like, but only a few people, usually very rich people, care about handmade furniture. And they care about antiques. And why? Because the person who made that antique is not alive anymore. And therefore, it's scarce and it has value. Right? So scarcity matters. And once something becomes massively available to the entire public and on the cheap, like graphic art has become available to everyone. Anyone can use a graphic art program online and do this. Designing a website, another great example. Remember when if you had a really good website, that was a big deal because you had to pay somebody a lot of money and they had to be really creative and they had to do all this code. And now having a nice looking website is pretty easy and nobody thinks about websites anymore. They're not a big deal, right? There's always a small group of holdouts, but for the most part, no, we don't think about it anymore. So is that going to happen in photography? How's that going to affect us? Now, there are some people who are going to say that photography, AI, it's just a tool. And that's true. It is just a tool. And they say you just got to learn to use it just like you did everything else, and you'll be fine. Yeah, but every time you have a tool that comes into any industry that makes that job easier, it affects the value of the finished product. And we've seen it in photography already. I can remember when, if you saw a really good, crisp, clean shot of, say, an eagle in flight, that was impressive, right? A really good, crisp, clean shot of a Formula F1 car, Formula 1 car, or something like that. Back in the days when you had to manually focus in order to get the shot, right? And you had these bigger lenses and fewer electronics, and you were shooting with film. Being a person who could get that sort of work, even something as simple as a great shot of a football player, right? Or the famous shot of Ali standing over, Sonny, I think it was Sonny Liston. Those shots had more value because they were rare. There weren't that many people who could do it. But now, I mean, come on. When you see a good nature picture, right? You see a picture of a bird in flight or a duck on a pond or something like that. Are you really as impressed by it as you were, say, 30 years ago, provided that you're old enough to remember that? Or are you just like, oh yeah, a bird in flight? Yeah, right. Getting a bird in flight, not as hard as it used to be. And before the nature people rip into me in the comments, feel free, by the way. I know that it's still hard. But when I look at a shot like that, I don't think about the difficulty of getting the shot in terms of the focus and in terms of the exposure and in terms of the things I would have thought about 20 or 30 years ago. Now I think, oh, that's difficult because you probably had to go out there day after day after day after day until you finally got that shot. And so that's a difficulty level that I respect. But the fact that it's in focus, no. Because tracking will take care of all of that for you. So that part of photography is losing its value because the scarcity is going away. So every time you add a tool to any business that makes that business easier, the value that comes out of that business, the product that comes out of that business, starts to become less valuable because more people can do it. And people do not see value in you doing something that they can easily do. So all this sounds pretty bad, right? I mean, everything I've said, sounds pretty bad. So let's get down to brass tacks. What is AI going to do to us? What is going to go away? And what is going to stay? Photography of things where the viewer doesn't care how the image was produced, and it doesn't matter if the thing being photographed is the actual thing or a completely accurate representation of the thing. That photography will die. We're talking about things like product photography, right? That's going to go away. We're talking about almost all advertising photography. Because if you look at an ad and there's someone drinking a glass of refreshing orange juice, you're not going to care if that's a real person drinking that glass of orange juice or if the whole thing was created by CI. In the same way that if you're watching an Avengers movie and you see Iron Man in flight, you don't really care that you know that that's not actually a person in a suit that's being hauled around on wires. It looks great, it looks authentic, and that's all that matters to you, so you really don't care. You like it when you get to actually see Robert Downey Jr., right? That sort of advertising will still work. A spokesman maybe, but generic stuff? No. I'm watching Ted Lasso the other night, and I'm like, they're not even standing in a stadium. There's no extras in the stands for these shots. This is all being computer generated, and I don't care. When you look at the work that they did on The Mandalorian, where now they have these giant screens. If you haven't seen this, by the way, go look at it. They have these giant screens on the soundstage that they're shooting in front of, and when the camera moves, the screen angles move to follow the camera. It's amazing. And that's why you get all these great shots in The Mandalorian of them inside these big hangars and on these desolate landscapes. They're not shooting on location. They're using these giant screens inside a soundstage. Do we care? No. And we've come to expect that level of AI-generated, computer-generated design. We've come to expect that in everything that we see, to the point that we don't even think twice about it anymore. My favorite thing is that now everyone has a drone shot now. Everyone has the helicopter shot. You watch somebody's channel where they've got a channel on YouTube and there's an overhead drone shot. Beautiful. Used to be you could only do that with a helicopter. And it was a sign of more effort and more money being put into the production. Not anymore. You can do it with a cheap drone. We see it all the time. And so we take it for granted. Not a big deal. So things like product photography, abstract art. If you're a photographer who does abstract work with your photography, yeah, that's going to go away. When I can go into a computer and just describe what I want something to look like that I want to put on my wall, done. Why would I go and buy your expensive abstract art? Unless you did some really cool abstract art and then you died. So if you could get busy on the dying part, then you might be popular. But otherwise, abstract art, no, that's going to go away. So products, things, advertising, all dead. What's left? Anything where a record of existence is required. That's what will survive when it comes to photography versus AI. So we're talking weddings, bar mitzvahs, quinceaneras, any event photography like a convention or something along those lines. Sports, photojournalism. We need pictures of the fire, right? These things will survive AI because people do not want to see an AI-generated image of a fire. They want to see pictures of the actual fire. They don't want AI-generated images from their wedding. They want actual pictures from their wedding. So that's going to survive. If you're not doing that sort of work and you're young and you want to have a career in photography, then I would suggest you start looking into that sort of work in some way that you can at least get at that as part of your portfolio so that you're ready to make the shift if you want to. Now, what if you're not? What if you're a hobbyist? A lot of the people who watch my channel, they're not pros. They're just hobbyists. They enjoy photography and they come here because I teach things and we have a good time and we like the Fuji cameras. What about you? It's not going to affect you. It doesn't matter to you, right? The fact that all this AI is out here, here's the only way it's going to matter to you. If you are a person who does photography primarily because you like the reaction that you get from people when you show them your photography, yeah, you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Because if you're doing it primarily for the attention that you get back from other people, yeah. Because that great shot that you got of that bird is just not going to be all hoo-hoo-hoo when anyone can go into an AI program and generate a shot that looks just like that with a few prompts. So you're going to lose some of that. But it's been my experience that a lot of the really good people are people who aren't in it for that reason. It's nice, but they're not really in it for that reason. They're in it because they get a personal satisfaction of what they create. And they get a personal satisfaction of creating it this way. And if that is what you love, then who cares what anybody else is doing, right? I mean, for God's sakes, there's people shooting film, right? I've got a good friend who loves film, and he shoots with film all the time. And he shows it, and people go, oh, I love that image, I love that image, I love that image. But no one ever goes, I love that image because you shot it with film. I love the look of the film. Because they don't have the know-how to be able to look at it and figure that out that way. He does because he's all into film, but they don't. So they just like that he knows how to light it and he knows how to pose, and all of that comes together. But the film part, that's just for him. And that's the way a lot of photography is going to be. The fact that you went out there and took that picture yourself, that's going to be mostly for you. So if you're a hobbyist, get ready for that, right? I would suggest showing fewer images, to be honest. You'll notice, like, if you go to my Instagram feed, I'll put a link to my Instagram feed. I don't show a lot of my work. I used to back when I was shooting weddings, but now I do a lot of headshots now and bar mitzvahs. I don't show a lot of it because, I mean, it's good, solid work, and I get paid well for it. But it's not exciting necessarily. So I don't show it. I show a lot of funny stuff on my Instagram feed. Follow my Instagram feed. You'll enjoy it. And I also do that because I never wanted to be hooked into validating myself based on what other people think of my work. I say this all the time. I do a thing on the channel here where I have people send in pictures and then I review those pictures online and I talk about them and I say, here's how I would improve this picture. You could change this crop, or you've got a blown out highlight here. And I guess I've experienced judging. So I use these skills and my years of experience as a photographer to help people see things they don't necessarily see in their image to have better work. And it takes great bravery to put something in and have someone look at your work and critique it that way. But the people who do it are so thankful because they're not really trying to do it because they want their pictures to look better for other people. They're trying to do it for themselves. They're trying to do it for their own personal journey and their personal experience and their personal growth. They want to be better for them because they enjoy it. And that's what you have to hang on to, because AI is going to destroy so much of the ego of people who do their photography just so people will tell them how great they are. Because AI is going to make it easy for everybody to be great. So do it because you love it. Get as good at it as you want to get, right? Make that, the journey is the fun part, not the finished product. If you're a professional, the finished product is very, very important. So get good at the other things that AI can't do yet. And eventually AI is going to be able to do pretty much everything good as technology comes along. For example, I'm going to tell you right now, I do a lot of headshots, and I'm telling you what's coming. I have not seen this anywhere, but I am predicting that eventually, I mean, we're already at the point where you can send a company a bunch of pictures of you and they will generate a headshot for you, and it's not going to be a very good one. But here's what's going to happen. Mark my words. Eventually, a headshot photographer, you will go to their studio or they'll come to you. They will set up a bank of lights, right? With a camera, maybe a couple of cameras. Maybe it'll all be built into one rig. You will sit down and you'll smile, you'll talk, you'll interact, you'll turn your head, etc. And then all of that will go into an AI program, and then that person will be presented with a whole series of images of them from different angles and different head tilts and different levels of smile and eyes and everything else, so they can pick one. And then the next step will be they can pick one and then they can modify it. Have you ever played a computer game where you get to create your character and it comes in and you can go, oh, make the eyes bigger, make the nose? Yeah, that's coming. That's the future of headshots. Headshots will just be about, it'll be a technician's job. You just come in, set up all the stuff. Each person will come do their thing. You'll press a button. It'd be like running a photo booth. Headshots will be that way. And they'll get incredible headshots. And the headshot will change clothes for them or change hairstyles. Take the gray out. It'll do all that. That's coming. That's the future. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's coming. Believe me. So I think in many ways, photography is going to evolve into a thing. It'll be like a guy who has a wood shop. You know, you're out in that wood shop and you're making that table because you really like making that table and you like being a woodworker. And if someone wants to buy that table, great, because maybe there's other people out there who appreciate a handcrafted table the way you do, and they're willing to pay you for the time and the work that you put into it. But most people, they're fine with IKEA. And you have to accept that. And you stay within your lane and not bemoan the fact that suddenly everyone in the world doesn't appreciate this thing that you do. What matters is that you appreciate it and that you have a support network of people who appreciate it as well. People like on this channel who you can talk to, who get into it. Because it's going to become more niche. It definitely is. By the way, you can also talk to people about this stuff on my Facebook group. I have a Facebook group called Pro Photo Talk with Booray Perry, and it's a great community there. I invite you to join that. And be sure and throw me a like and a subscription, and check out the rest of my videos, because there's so much education that I put into these videos where I teach everything I can about photography. And if you're worried about the future of photography, then you're probably a photographer, or you want to be a photographer, and you should definitely go take a look at some of my videos, especially this series called Booray Explains, where I'm just trying to explain every little aspect of photography as it occurs to me. So check all that out, and check out my gear page. My gear page is listed down in the description, and it's all the gear that I carry. And believe it or not, doing a channel like this costs money. And one of the ways that I help offset that cost is that when people go and they look at my gear and they go, oh, let me check that out, or I need this particular thing, they click that link, and if they end up buying it from Amazon or B&H Electronics or wherever, then I end up getting a few dollars, and it helps me to pay for the software that I have to use on this channel and the lights and everything else that it takes me to do this channel, not to mention the fact that I should be working right now, and instead I'm making this video and talking to you. So you can always do that. And of course, you can also throw me a tip and a gratuity down in the tip thing. That's always nice as well. So that's it. Jump in the comments, because I really want to know what you think. I'm sure there are going to be some people who think that I'm way overreacting, and there are some people who think that I'm actually underreacting, and that photography is doomed and AI is going to replace everything. So I want to know what you think. Tell me in the comments, and let's have a conversation about it. And thanks for watching.